Welcome back to the Leather Shop. I'm your host, Matt Roach, and this month we have a special guest. We have Hugh Harriss from Buckleguy. Hugh, thanks for jumping on and joining us.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, excited to be here and chat with you.
So, for all of you that don't know, Buckleguy is based out of Massachusetts, and I never realized they were about 45 minutes from my house, which was pretty much the greatest thing that I found out. And I've been shopping at Buckleguy for years. So I was really excited when they decided to jump on board and, be a part of this. And of course, we had to have Hugh on. Hugh, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what your role is there.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess I'll say we're 80-year-old business. I'm fourth generation, and today my role is kind of a bit of everything. I don't really have a defined role, so it's a bit of customer service, sales, development, finance. So I touch on just about everything here. We're a small business, so it's kind of the nature of it.
Yeah, and I think that is also one of the really cool things about the leather industry. You have a lot more family-owned businesses, family-run, and it kind of you get to see what creates these brands and what is the life behind them. So, how did Buckleguy originate? How did it all come to be?
So yeah, just to go back to your point, I mean, I go in on sales calls occasionally, and I walk in the door, and people say, "Wow, Hugh, I didn't expect you to be, how old you are. You're younger than expected." I mean, it's an industry where you walk in a place and they expect you to be 75 years old. So it is. Like you said, it is kind of a generational business. And for us, I'm fourth generation, and we got our start back in 1945 when my great grandfather was over in England. Went over there before the war, and he was a consultant for a lot of the tanneries. And so at the time, he was traveling within tanneries and building connections between the tanneries and a lot of the shoe companies in the U.S. So post-war, he had a lot of those connections. So he became a liaison for the tanneries and shoe companies. So think Johnson & Murphy, Allen Edmonds, FootJoy, Alden, a lot of the big players, which back then in the 40s, a lot of manufacturing of shoes and textiles was happening in Massachusetts in our area. And so we were importing all of the leather from England to all of these shoe companies. That lasted about 20 or so years. We got into tanning machinery. It was a machine called the Lisa. It was a big staking machine. So staking machines are when you take let's say stiff sole leathers, you put them through a staking machine and it softens them up. And so we were selling these Czechoslovakian Lisa machines throughout the US. They're, it's almost the size of half a container. Did that for a while. That moved to the East. And we got back into representing leather tanneries through the 60s, 70s, part of the 80s. And then my father got into the business, and he was selling leather at first, but then a client was asking about hardware. And so he was selling him leather. He was selling him calf skin out of England. And I said, yeah, I use swivel snaps. And so we had a contact in Taiwan, and the guy said, yeah, this swivel snap, I'll take 50,000 of those. And so it was basically an overnight decision for my father. And now granted, it took a couple of years to move out of leather and move into hardware. So we partnered with a factory out of Taiwan in the late 80s and early 90s, mostly the early 90s, specializing in solid brass hardware. And we were distributing to some of the biggest companies in the US. We were distributing to I won't say the names, but we were distributing some larger brands. And then in the year 2000, some of the biggest brands that we were working for, they're doing a big enough volume where my father and some of his partners out of Taiwan decided to go and start their own factory. And so in 2000, we built our own factory, which is the same factory that we're producing out of today. Solid brass, stainless steel, zinc. We kind of do all sorts of hardware production. Our main business being custom manufacturing. So brands come to us and say, hey, we want this particular buckle, this spec, this finish, this logo. We take it from start to finish. We create the CAD files. We print plastics here in Massachusetts. We send that to a customer. They approve it. And we go to metal sampling. And then once they approve that, we go to production. So 1,000-piece minimums for custom hardware, 6 to 8 week production time, and then shipping. So that is kind of the core of what we do. We are a medium to high-end accessory hardware producer. Back in, I think, 2010, we had a lot of hardware on the floor from the days when we produced for Coach. They left a lot of hardware. We had it. We put it up on a website, some of their hardware. And we discovered that there is a market for on-demand delivery. So shipping, not taking the 3 months to deliver. So immediate delivery, low minimums. And so we put it up on the site and we discovered, hey, there's a massive market of people that need hardware right away in smaller quantities. So Buckleguy, since 12 years ago, has really evolved into a key element of our business. Not only do we do custom hardware, we stock and we now work with, close to 100 different vendors on different supplies. So we stock tools and zippers and other hardware and leathers and you name it. We're kind of becoming a one-stop shop. And the philosophy with Buckleguy really at the beginning and still is today is to take clients, smaller clients, crafters, small manufacturers, provide them with more of a premium hardware. The hardware that we provide is accessory trade hardware, not equestrian hardware, not marine grade hardware. It is accessory level hardware, which is not available on the market. Provide that to them, allow them to grow their businesses with smaller quantities. And as they expand and they grow their business, they can take advantage of our bulk discounts and then get to a point where they're ordering thousands of units and go factory direct where they save and they get more of that wholesale and also custom ability to customize hardware. And we've taken the same approach with the leathers, the tools, the zippers. We look at manufacturers, tanneries, producers that also meet the same criteria that we put on our hardware. So again, medium to high-end providers and makers and manufacturers is who we partner with. So when clients come to us, they're not getting a good piece of hardware and a bad zipper. They're getting the best hardware on the market, the best zipper on the market, the best leathers on the market. So we do a lot of the qualifying here. We've got a production floor where we manufacture finished products as well, where we do a lot of the product testing. So I usually give a 2-minute explanation of who we are. That was maybe my 7 minutes. So that's kind of
you were in the zone. I didn't even want to stop you. I was like, the man's got it right now. I was like, I just got to let him run with it.
That's like the elevator pitch going up the Empire State Building or something. That was a long one.
I like it though. I feel like you must have so many elevator pitches by this point that you have every, if I got to go up 30 floors, I know exactly how long my pitch can be.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking all the elements. So it's the Buckleguy, it's the IAS, it's the who we are. So yeah, you got the whole bit.
Well, first of all, I love it. I love how there's so many facets to it. But I think the main thing is, and anybody who shops from you knows, your hardware selection is just unmatched. We talked about it in our first episode. I only use your hardware for everything. Your catalog is enormous. You guys have everything. So that is basically how most people find you. They find you from hardware and then they stay for everything else. You guys do have an enormous selection. And I know me personally, and I'm sure there's other people out there, you touched upon it a little bit. How does the process go of how it's all made? Because we were talking a little bit the other day about the ins and outs, and I was just fascinated by it. I think it is the coolest thing, the minutia that you know about how each product is made, I find fascinating. So if we're just talking about a basic D-ring or something like that, let's talk about the process, because I feel like that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's different depending on the metal you're producing. I mean, the core of what a lot of customers come to us on the Buckleguy is brass. Brass is more, let's say, an art form than zinc. Zinc is a commodity. You can create a steel mold for zinc die casting, and you can produce it in your garage. Brass, and the majority of the brass that we do is sand cast. So like a D-ring, you're creating a father mold, and it maybe has, let's say, 40 D-rings on this tree. And you're creating actual sand cast molds. There's a lot of specialty sands that you use. And basically, you fill that cavity, you remove the father mold, you put the top back on it, and you pour molten brass into this cavity, and it sits for a couple of minutes, and you take it off, and you've got your tree. And so brass, brass is stronger than zinc. Brass bends before it breaks. You're able to do different sorts of castings, different shapes, different angles, different platings. So brass for us is our specialty. That's why a lot of people come to us. Brass just goes better with leather. It's definitely an age-old technique, and it's more of an original way of producing bag hardware. I mean, most of the original bags that you see are brass made, or most of the components that go on bags are brass. So what we also do in-house, which is kind of a specialty as well, is a lot of plating. So we take that brass, and let's say you're making a gold-plated piece. You tumble the piece first. You take off the burrs and the pits. You tumble that off. We then do a hand polishing part where we're sanding it off or polishing off other burrs that don't get taken off during the tumbling. So there's a lot of post work. If you look at our hardware and you go to a hardware store and you look at a D-ring, what you'll notice a lot of pit marks, particularly on the inner areas of that D-ring. Ours, we do a high polish. Again, we're selling to high end fashion brands that if you have a pit or a scratch, they're going to reject it. And so we do the same production, a lot of the same quality control for those brands that we do for every other piece that we produce. So when we are preparing for plating, we need to make sure we have a very clean surface. The first step that we do if we're going to gold plate is you do a layer of copper. A layer of copper plating basically allows for a lot better adhesion between the next layers and the brass. Copper adheres very well to brass. It also gives you a more smooth surface to do the next layer on. So copper is a huge part, because if you do a nickel plating, which is next on top of brass, nickel on brass is going to chip. It's going to flake off very soon. That copper layer creates an incredibly durable bond. So you go brass, you go copper plating, then you go a nickel layer. The nickel layer for gold is done because gold is very thin. It's a micron thickness of like 0.2 or 0.4. You can see through that. So if you did just a natural brass layer and you had gold on top of that, you're going to see down through the gold and you're going to see to that brass layer. It's not going to look nice. So the nickel layer is almost like a mirror finish. So you do gold on top of that. Again, better adhesion to a nickel layer with the gold. So as I've explained this, there's now 4 layers that you're putting on top of this brass part. And that is the proper way to do plating, particularly with accessory hardware. Again, you see a nickel plating and it's chipping and flaking. I guarantee you that's because they've plated nickel on top of brass directly instead of doing those layers in between. Lacquer coating. That's the final step. We do it for every piece of hardware that we do. Again, we do a lot of testing in-house. Again, the regulations for some of these high-end brands, we do cast testing. Cast testing is a high humidity, high heat, in high salt content in a bath for 4 hours, for 24 hours. We put our hardware in there to test our lacquer coating. So brass, which will tarnish if you don't have a strong lacquer coat, will basically deteriorate during those 24 hours. Our lacquer coating it's proprietary to us and it's incredibly durable. We're constantly re-engineering it. And so with our brass, it's a lacquer coating that's going to allow it to not tarnish for long periods of time. We do that for everything. So that's kind of that start to finish on our production on brass.
So that's probably why a lot of people don't have those like things like you said, like the flaking and the things falling apart, where I've never had anything like that ever happen, which I think is fascinating. But I also think that's probably the main reason why people are so loyal to using your hardware, because there's no issues at all. And
you
is
do pay
that
a little more for it. I will say that we are not the cheapest, but there are these hidden reasons. Another hidden reason is we use all low lead brass. Low lead brass meets the Prop 65. It meets the European REACH standards. We have to do low lead brass, but low lead is an unrecycled brass. When you do a recycled brass, where you're taking tons of brass parts and or old recycled brass into one pot, you're getting impurities. You're not allowed to do that on Prop 65 and REACH. So again, that's a hidden reason of what makes our hardware, a little more expensive, but also top end.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And, if anybody hasn't, visited their website, there's always links in the bios. You can check it out. And then they're always expanding their collection. I feel like we were joking about it yesterday, that even though I knew they were going to be on, there was things on their website that I hadn't even seen yet. And I thought that was hilarious, that even though I was actively looking for things for us to chat about, there was still things I missed that you had added within the last 6 weeks. But one thing I've always wondered is, how'd you come up with the name Buckleguy? Did you come up with it? Was it your dad? How did that name come up? I always wondered, was it just like you just liked buckles and you wanted to be the buckle guy? Like what, how did that happen? I love it.
Well, I think maybe either myself, my brother, or my sister came up with it. So 30 years ago, my dad, he used to sell buckles, and literally we used to call him the Buckle Guy. I think he had a t-shirt that said the Buckle Guy before Buckle Guy was a thing. And so when we were starting the website, we didn't think it was going to be anything serious. So we were just like, let's have fun with it. Let's call it the Buckle Guy or Buckle Guy. And it was my dad to us as kids was always the Buckle Guy. So
I feel like you need to have like a buckle named after your dad, like in the catalog. I feel like that would be awesome. He is the Buckle Guy.
I know. Yeah, we should choose our favorite. He got Pete's tape. His name's Peter. He got Pete's tape recently because my brother got Ted's tape. So that's an ode to him. But yeah, that's a good idea.
But I feel like there needs to be like the Peter, the formal buckle, like the OG buckle. I love it. That is like the coolest thing. And I bet you some people are probably like, I don't even know you as Buckle Guy. I just know you as the guy that sends me the stickers.
Yes. Yeah. The sticker. That's That's been fun. I know I get a lot of reposts on Instagram with that one. Yeah.
The stickers are amazing. How did the stickers even happen? That's just like fantastic. I love my son. We were joking about this. He puts them on his backpack. Like we have Buckleguy stickers all over our house. Like my son, every time I get a box, he knows your tape, and
Oh yeah.
he opens it, he takes the sticker out, and then he closes the box back up.
So the way it started, I originally thought we were just drawing stickers. No, Emma, who has been in our warehouse for ages, people in the order comments, you can write, ship as quick as possible, yada yada. Some people are writing these funny little comments like "draw me an elephant" or "draw me a bear," and Emma was taking the time on the inside of the box flaps to basically draw these. She's an artist by education. So she's a phenomenal artist, and she started drawing these pictures on the inside of the boxes with these funny puns included on the top. And I started posting, or actually, no, other people started posting it and tagging us on Instagram, and I would repost it, and it became this little phenomenon for us. And it was happening for, gosh, it must have been 6 to 8 months. It was just every other day we were getting reposted, and she was drawing. And so he said, well, why don't you just start doing some stickers, and we'll kind of put the dudes and gals who sew on the back burner for a bit. And, for the last year, she's been doing one every month. And we've got another 6 that she just finished. Little sneak peek. I've got one on the water bottle. So yeah, it's been fun. And Emma in the warehouse has been doing it ever since, and will continue to do it. So you might see t-shirts at some point with them, but we'll see.
That is amazing. They're hysterical. Like they're like, I love when they like come in and like the orders. I'm just like, yes, a new sticker. And I love how I didn't realize you changed it every month. I thought you just kind of had like you have like seasonal ones that are like holidays and things like that, which is fantastic.
No, we tried to do like the 4th of July. Like I think it was a crab with a flag. And then every month has got some sort of thematic picture. Some are obvious and some are a little more subtle.
Well, I guess it's perfect time. So people listening right now are probably like, all right, I'm going to probably get some like themed ones now that it's like the end of the year. Sure. And, for anybody that's listening, we are recording some of this stuff. So what we're going to do is Christian in the, people who have called, they probably talked to him. He's great. He's their marketing guy. He's going to chop up some of this stuff and put it on some of the website, because not only did we get Hugh, but we got some unreleased stuff that he's going to talk about, which is pretty much as exciting as it gets. So, first is we'll of course some of this will be on the website. It might be on ours, it might be on theirs. We'll find some way to put it. But talk us about some of these like exciting things you got coming up. I know, and some of these items are released and I didn't even know they existed until we talked about it, yesterday when we were prepping for this. So, talk about, start with the toolboxes, because I think those are so cool and I like secretly want one, because they seem so handy and so perfect for like whatever thing you're working on in the shop.
I got to give credit to Eric and Kayleen over at Quarter. They gave me the little idea on this. They had purchased a few. They're from Japan, Toyo Toolboxes, and they're basically what I think, because there isn't a toolbox for the leather crafter, right? You got fisherman toolboxes, you've got toolboxes for screwdrivers and so forth. There's nothing specific for leathercraft. And when we got these in, they're utilitarian, they're simple in design. It kind of meets the ethos of leather crafters, I think. And the sizes are great. I think we're stocking 4 sizes in just about all the colors. They're from Japan. You can read about them on our site, on the Toyo site. And I think they could be the leather crafter standard for toolbox, for kind of what they offer and the sizes of our tools. Hey, Matt, I think you're on mute.
Oh, definitely just muted myself. Look at that. I love it. Do you gotta love when things just happen? I feel like it's like 2020 again, like, right when, the pandemic started and everybody was having meetings and they're like, Janice, you're on mute. Can you turn that on, please? Like, I clearly haven't learned anything. We're over 2 years in and I'm still doing it.
No, that's a PG error too. You can get some R-rated errors on Zoom if you're not careful.
Yeah, people can lose jobs. It happens. I've seen a lot of interesting things. So the pandemic has given us some laughs, but these toolboxes, though, they're so unique. I mean, my dad was a contractor, so I have so many toolboxes, and I can't think of one that I actually would use with my leather tools. Like they're not like the right sizes. They're meant specifically for like a job site. They're not meant, and Christian's holding up one of the blue ones, and that's actually a really cool color. But they have like this kind of like 19 like 60s 70s. I'm going to lunch and I have my little
Exactly.
my I have my sandwich, my soda, and a couple tools in there, and I'm just like kind of going for the day. And what I didn't realize until you mentioned was they actually can be leather lined and like with your
Oh
initials and
yeah,
stuff, which I
right.
think is kind of cool. Like I would have never, I guess, I mean, I probably would have thought about it as a leather crafter, but I like how you can actually like. I probably would almost buy it too because it's like precision. I feel like there's certain things,
Yeah,
even leather, I would still buy.
it was the thing. It was like, well, we can have fun with it. Other people are distributing them. It's like, well, what can we do to be different? Well, we can throw a similar color, like we're doing a dark navy on the blue. We're doing a red in the red boxes. But yeah, we cut them on our basically their knife cutter upstairs, and we do a little patch with your acronym or your name on it. But yes, you're everybody's leather crafter, so you could essentially do it yourself. I thought it was kind of fun anyway.
But it's kind of nice though because it's like there's some things you just kind of want there, like you don't want to have to think about, and it's nice just to like have it there. And we have Christian holding up. So what's nice? I think he's holding up what looks like the medium sized one. I think that how many sizes are there? There's three.
That yeah, the one Christian just had was the medium large. There's an extra large, which is a cantilever top, and then there's a smaller one, flat top, and then those little micro ones, which are good for threads. They're good for paints and some small tools.
What's cool about the extra large one that I saw that I liked was that it's like the perfect size that you could fit like a handful of hardware. So like you could go over and like do like a whole project start to finish with what you have in that one toolbox.
Yeah, and it's good for, like if you're going to trade shows, your farmers markets. You can bring a bunch of the needed tools in it. We took a bunch of photos. We kind of staged some photos with tools and hardware and threads and glues in the boxes to kind of give you a reference on what you can fit.
Yeah, like for me, like what I see it is each slot could probably be like a handful of hardware. And what's great is on the large one, I believe it looks like it has 10 slots. So you could really keep 10 different style. Like you could make on-demand belts or you could make a lot of on-demand things and still keep thread, bevels, knives, like all those main things in the main
Yep.
compartment, which is really nice because it adds that extra. Because for me personally, I lose hardware all the time because it's small. It's very easy to like lose it, but though it's like self-contained, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, yeah, and you can move those little tray slides between, so you can actually open them up to be bigger on that top cantilever. So yeah, it's really a good product, and the price is fair for what it is. I was surprised when we first got it about the price. I thought it was too cheap, but yeah, it's a good price in my opinion.
I think there's something about like organization because I think the average leather crafter doesn't have a massive workshop. So they're usually trying to make things work. And I think a lot of people start out at their kitchen table. I think it's
Yep.
like the natural progression. You start out your kitchen table, you work to more of a dedicated space. And this seems like to me the my wife won't kill me bucket. It's like
Yeah,
that's what you kind of have for if you're married or my significant other will not kill me because it's contained.
and it looks good, right?
Yeah, it looks nice. It's got the aesthetic, and you can just like lie and be like, "Oh, it's a fashion thing."
Yeah.
Um, but that to me, like if I had that when I first started out, I think that would have saved me like a lot of headaches. Like that would have been. I had crap everywhere. It was awful. Like because you just had little bags of like hardware all over. It was a mess.
Yeah.
Now I got more of a dedicated space, but it's still organized chaos. Um, so we saw those, and the other thing that is on this table, which I'm always interested in is you guys are going to be adding some knives, some not knives, some scissors.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about these because I looked these up yesterday and they look really interesting. They look nice.
Yeah, we're working with a brand out of Canada. They're called LDH Scissors, and again, in our workshop, we've got some really experienced sewers, and they were telling us about a couple of different brands. There's the Fiskars, which is the run of the mill. You can get it at Joann's, but this LDH line is based in Canada, produced in Asia, and fabric shears, pinking shears. There's the Ferrari of the thread cutter as well. They come in all different shapes or all different sizes. I think from 8 inch to 12 inches. They're for fabrics. They're for canvas. You can cut leather on them. You'll have to sharpen them a bit more. We got the Midnight Edition. It's carbon steel, so it's lighter weight than stainless. So it's better on the hand. We did all rubber lined handles. Again, it's easier on the hand long term, so you can be cutting with it all day. And they're just a quality scissor. I mean, that's all these guys do is they just produce scissors and cutting equipment. And from our experience and from what we use in our shop, it fit the bill again, kind of fitting the philosophy of Buckleguy. It's a medium to high end quality product. It's better than what you're going to get at your run of the mill hobby store.
No, it's true because it's funny you say that. I started out with a basic pair of heavy duty Fiskars, and they just did not cut it over time. And I like how now Christian's holding up what Hugh calls the Ferrari. So
Oh
what
man,
makes the Ferrari, like, what are these things? Like, now I'm intrigued. What makes this the Ferrari? Like, is it just like cut it through like it's butter? Like, and I guess apparently you can do tricks because we have Christian in the background doing some tricks with his hands. So maybe it's like, you can just like go to a shootout, I mean, you can be at like an old Western film.
so it's the weight for one. They're carbon steel. We sell some other cheap version that I think they're like $1 a whack. These I think are 20. It's the way that they come down, and so they're engineered to slice. So every time blade on blade is hitting, they're hitting right at the sharp point. And so regardless of where the thread falls within the mouth, it's gonna land on both sides of the blade. Again, carbon steel. It's going to last. The blade sharpness is going to last a heck of a lot longer than most other steels. So its longevity is a lot of what you're paying for. And they handle well. I mean, they've got the thumb grip or the finger grip, and it's got a bit of weight to it. It's a nicer hand feel as well. But again, it mostly comes down to the metal and the engineering of the product.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's funny you mentioned the other ones you guys sell. They're like, you're right. Like, they're like $2 or something. And I'm guilty of buying them in bulk.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
I buy them by like, I think almost every other order I throw a 5-pack in because not only do I lose them, but like they're probably everywhere in my house, but I'll be doing something and I'll break it, or like I'll do something, you know what I mean? So like I use those they're the best like if you're looking for just like a basic thing,
yeah,
that they can't be beat. Like, they're great, but you're right. There's a margin for high end. Like, there's different levels.
It's kind of like when I'm talking to customers about the rotary punches. We stock the Osborne rotary punch. One of them is, I think, $17 and one's $85. And the first question is, well, are you making one product? Or are you doing, manufacturing is going to be a hobby. We're going to have this for ages. It's an investment, but it's an investment in, I guess, the product, not having to replace it, but it's an investment in efficiency and the quality of the cut and the longevity of cutting and the handle of the cutting. So again, it's an investment. Are you making one wallet? Or are you making 100 wallets? If you're making 100, get something that's going to last and it's going to perform better.
Yeah, no, 100% true. I think that's like, and I learned that the hard way too. And I think a lot of people did is when you first start out, you buy cheaper things. There's things I bought on Amazon and things like that. And I learned those tools weren't worth the $15 I spent because I use Palo Santo bevelers now, and I look back to the $15, $20 one I bought because I didn't want to spend $60 or $70. And I'm like, what was I doing? Like, it dulled out every 10 minutes. So in hindsight, you do get what you pay for. But those are the fun things that I saw in the picture. So that was me just kind of geeking out on stuff that I clearly just wanted to talk about. But some other stuff we were talking about this earlier. I was ecstatic when we met a couple months ago about the fact that you guys were going to have the NBA basketball leather. I got like pretty like childhood giddy when I saw that. And the second I got it in the house, when you guys sent me a panel of it, I made a watch strap because I was just so excited. It's funny how like basic things you just like virtually can't find anywhere else. And for anybody listening, I am a diehard Boston Celtics fan. So you can understand why I get really excited for things like this because there's just something really, really cool. I know that Horween makes all of the leathers for sports, which I found fascinating.
Yeah.
Cool. But like, it's funny how like, I didn't realize they made like the baseball glove leather. So when I saw that you guys had that as well, I didn't even know that was something that Horween made? Have they always made that, or
Yeah, I think
like?
they work for a couple of bigger brands of baseball brands that make gloves. So yeah, I think they work with some of the bigger ones, and they provide that glove. And it's baseball glove. It's form fitting. It's you see the leather, and then you see what's out there in the market. You'll understand who they're making.
Yeah, it was really soft. It was funny. I was trying to think of like random things. I'll probably end up wanting, ordering a 2 foot panel because I kind of want to see how it ages as like a wallet or like a watch strap. It just seems like it'd be one of those things that'd be kind of cool. Um,
And one
but
of
it
the
is.
leathers. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Oh no, no, no. What were you saying?
I was going to say. So we brought the basketball. We brought the glove. The other one that we're working on with Horween bringing is the football. So it's in the works, but we just started football season, so I think they're a bit behind on making sure they've got inventory for the NFL. But that will be one that will be coming in, once they've got some skins available for us.
Yeah, I bought some of that. I still have a little bit. I got it a couple years ago because originally there wasn't a lot of people, and one of our other partners, OA Leather, up in Canada, for all our Canadian friends. I don't know if they still stock it. I believe they used to, but I got a hide of it a couple years ago because it wasn't really something you found everywhere. Like those things from Horween, they just you see it a little bit more now, but they weren't really out there, which was surprising because it just seems like it's one of those kind of fun things that everybody would want. Um,
I know.
I
Yeah.
I even bought a NBA pouch to put on a kind of a notebook cover because I was so excited when I got the panel that I immediately cut it and just trying to find a way to get to adhere. And that's the things that I love with the leather crafters, the conversations we have, because it's simple things that you don't think about of getting an iron-on patch to stay on leather
Mhm.
with not kind of changing the look of it. Sometimes you have to think of different types of threads and different types of glues and all these things. We always talk about. It's funny how you get into the nitty gritty of like what glue you use and
Yeah.
what thread do you use, and I feel like those are like the most common conversations. And it's not a one size fits all either. There's so many um, different people, and there's funny. There's leathers that have been around forever, and I didn't even know they existed till we met up. I've used Botero for years, and to be honest, I didn't even know you guys sold it at first. I've always bought it from other places, so I was actually glad locally. It's nice to have it there. Um, I tried Valdebrana. Tell me a little bit more about that one because I know we haven't really talked about it, and I really liked using it. I made my mom a. Clearly, there's a lot of sports talk here. When you're from Massachusetts, it's kind of like religion. It comes, you love your family, and then you love you love the team. So my mom's diehard, like fourth generation, like Red Sox fan. So if it was my like, I'm not even kidding when I say like the day my son was born, she asked the nurse to put on the Patriots game.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Like she was
That's
like,
next
"Can we
level.
get this? Can we get this on in here?" And I was like, "Ma, you realize like you're in the middle of the hospital. My son was born like 6 hours ago, and you're like, can we put the game on?" So I made her using that. Actually, it was half and half. I think it was half Butero, half Valdebrana, a little wallet, and she like absolutely loved it. It really, they feel very similar. There's a lot of similarities to them. I'm interested to kind of hear. I'm sure people want to know a little bit more about those.
Yeah, we brand it under our own name. We wanted to bring it in, kind of control a little bit more of the brand. We don't do that on all of the leathers that we do. We do it occasionally. And so on this one, it's from Italy. It's from the Tuscan region. It's a pure veg leather. It's very similar. A lot of these leathers, like our Valdebrana, like Butero, it's really a lot of the same base formula. Slight changes in the makeup of the wax and the oils and the tallows and what goes into it to make that formation. But a lot of it's really similar. It's a vachetta leather. It's an Italian vachetta. And then there's variations, of course, off of those. You can get more of your harness style leathers, but that's something again we're looking into with our partner tanneries in Italy. And so, yeah, we've got the range of colors. I think we've got 12 colors in our Valdebrana, and it's similar to an English bride, a little bit more supple, a little bit softer hand feel, but they're very similar. Really, when it comes down to it, if I gave you two leathers, from the two tanneries in Italy and the same tannage, you'd have a hard time telling the difference. You could if you understand leather, but it's a really similar makeup in terms of what goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed a lot of similarities when I made it. I noticed it edge finishing, it finished very similar to Botero. They were almost identical. I couldn't tell the difference. I
Yeah, you
think for
shouldn't be able to.
me as a leather worker, the only thing I noticed slightly was it had a little bit different of a finish on the Botero versus the Valdebrand. It's slightly almost one's almost a little bit like shiny. I don't even know how to describe it. It's got a slightly different finish,
Hmm.
or maybe a more matte. I guess the Valdebrand maybe has a little bit more of a matte feel than um, like a glossy feel.
Yeah,
Not that it has a gloss. It's slightly different.
yeah, it's the end finishing, I believe, that goes into it. I mean, I believe they're both 100% aniline, so you're getting the
Yeah,
same dyeing process. But yeah, I would agree with it. You can see it on the surface layer just a bit
yeah.
on the grain, but
And
yeah,
I
100% grain or a full grain.
so that's interesting. I feel like the last 15 minutes, I've probably been people a disservice. I'm like totally like treating it like it's a QVC module because it's basically me just fanboying over here. Because I'd say like 80% of my stuff I get is from you guys,
Thank
and
you.
then like there's kind
Sure.
of like a little bit here, a little bit there. I'll buy some stuff from Rocky Mountain or Billet District Leather, or I buy a fair amount of stuff from Weaver. But I'd say like 80% is probably you guys. So it's totally like me just like giddy for like no reason. Um,
Thanks.
so, um, but the one thing I did want to talk about, and it's funny, I was talking to a couple friends about this, is the PVD. When we talked a little bit
Yes.
about this, I didn't understand any of it, and I found it. To be honest, I didn't own a single thing PVD until we talked. And then after we talked, I immediately went home and I ordered like a couple D rings and like a couple keychain things. And I immediately made some stuff for my dad. Um, and he loves it, by the way. He's like the hit at like the dive bars now, like the old man bars where they go and talk about their creaky knees and all that stuff. He's like the hit over there with all his cool stuff. So tell me a little bit more about this. I didn't even know anything about it until you told me. So people will probably find this fascinating.
So the backstory. So basically, in the in the realm of production plating, when you're plating hardware, a lot of what we do is electroplated. So you're dipping it in baths, uh, in electrified water, and basically you're adhering the particles in the water bath to your hardware. With black, the nature of black forever has always been easier to understand. It's almost like a spray paint, the nature of black that most people have done that we do. We still do a type of black plating that's just a normal black coating. When you do and when I say normal black, I'm not talking PVD. Normal black coating is going to chip, it's going to wear within days. For example, if you're doing a normal black key ring, metal on metal with your keys, you're going to see scratch marks in that plating coming off within almost hours. That's just the nature of black in the market. It's not like a nickel plating, which is incredibly durable, nickel matte, golds. They're very strong platings because of the process. Black, you can't electroplate black in the same way. So when we introduced PVD about 5 years ago, we had never really done it. But what we were looking for was to introduce a product in black because black is popular. It's one of the most popular finishes that we have now. When we were looking to bring it in, we did not want to deal with people calling up saying, hey, my black hardware is chipping, it's fading, it's coming off within hours, and getting customer complaints. And so what we decided to do is, okay, let's investigate. PVD is poly vapor deposition, and it basically goes in these vacuum tight chambers. And similar process, you're adhering metal particles in the air to the hardware on these hanging trees. So poly vapor deposition, you do it in black. Your color tones vary from black to more of your stainless steel tones, gunmetal tones, some gold tones, and then you get your really funky ones. You get your reds, your blues, your greens. You can do rainbow. You get some funky colors, but you can't do everything you can do on brass, like your antiques, your antique nickels, your antique brasses. That's not possible with PVD. PVD is a slimmer offering of finishes, but with your PVD, it is an incredibly thin layer of plating compared to your nickels. It's like 20 times thinner, but it's almost 100
Wow.
times stronger. Some degree, it's multiples times stronger than a nickel plating, a nickel matte gold plating. And so your wear testing, it's going to last. It's what you do on golf clubs. It's what you do on watches, poly vapor deposition. let's say I sell a buckle for it's $2 in brass, it's $2.50 in nickel plate. You're talking $3, $3.20 if it's in PVD. It's you're paying for it, but what you're paying for is a buckle or a key ring that's not going to scratch and fade within hours like a regular black piece. So PVD we brought to market. You're paying for it, but what you're getting is longevity in the finish.
It's funny you say that because I think that is the sole reason why I never bought black stuff before, because I was always nervous about the scratches and having that underneath, and I was like, ugh, I don't want that. Like that would just be like, it's the risk you don't want to take. Whereas like brass, it's like, oh, okay, it kind of blends in. Like
Yeah.
it's not like this thing. And then when you told me, I think that's all I've really bought since is just like PVD stuff. Because I just think that's just, and to me, like I get like if you're doing large scale, like that extra dollar per product makes a difference. Like most of
Yeah.
the things I'm doing is just for me or my family or people that I don't mind spending a dollar on. Like, it's different. But if you're doing production, that adds up real quick.
And that's why we still do a regular black plating. Again, where a $2 buckle in brass, $3.20 in PVD. With a regular black plating, you can be in that 230 range, 240 range. So we can do it, and we still do it. We do it for a lot of our clients that they're buying 10,000 units and they can't afford the PVD, so we do regular black. But again, there's a nickel layer under that black. So if you're scratching through, that contrast of the nickel layer on the black is going to be pretty apparent. And so
Yeah.
we have to give them warnings, and we put it in writing that, hey, you can't reject this if it fades or if it scratches within, any period of use, because it's going to.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Well, I mean, I think that also is a good point. Like you have to have some level of like expectations too. Like if you want something, but the coolest thing that I thought was I didn't realize it could be so many different colors. Like to me, like the fact that something can be PVD and like you said, rainbow or like red or blue, like that is like it's like fascinating to me. And I don't know if that's just me kind of geeking out, but like at like the science of it, but like the fact that you can take anything and put it in that material is fascinating.
I mean, hey, if you want to do a blue or red, you'd be my first. The amount of people I've showed the blue and red and have a similar reaction, but never go forward with it. It's kind of like in hardware. The amount of people that have asked me for rose gold and copper is numerous over the years. And I'm talking on the wholesale side where people are going to put an order in for 1,000 units. I think I've done copper twice, been asked for it over 100 times. And so copper, it always sounds great. But again, there's so many levels of copper. Do you want shiny penny copper, or do you want, 30-year-old copper penny? And there's a lot of variation. I like antique nickels. So anyway, it's one of those like copper and rose gold that I would love to put it into Buckleguy, like a PVD red and a PVD green. But I can guarantee you it's going to sit on my floor for a while.
I feel like we need to like do like a Kickstarter so I can just like I can like bribe people into like funding my like stupid ideas. Like
give me a reason. I'm down, but you gotta give me a reason.
And what's the worst part? I have no good reasons. And you think I'd like be better at negotiating with these things because I have to sell my wife on everything, and I'm not getting any better at it. Like as the years, I think like my solutions are getting worse. Like they're not getting any more effective.
I mean, maybe, what we did on some items like our fish hooks and our collar studs, they're standalone items. So you can buy it, you can make a bracelet out of it, you can make a bag closure. It's a standalone, meaning if you make a bag, you need a swivel, you need a D-ring, you need a slider, you need a buckle, and then you need all the sizes. So if I'm to introduce a color, let's say copper, into a swivel snap, well, then I need all those other carrying on components. But a fish hook, a collar stud, there's a couple of items that we can do that are standalone products to test the market. And we've done it with copper, gunmetal, some golds. And even in those items, they're the low sellers. Your brass is obviously, number one because you're getting the true finish. Brass is brass. What we do to our natural brass is we cast it, we tumble it, and we lacquer it. You cut that thing in half, you're going to see the same color tone throughout the whole piece. And so that's obviously why you're buying brass for brass. That's what you're getting.
So yeah, I'm totally going to use this as like a platform to like talk people into like my ridiculous ideas so that I can like have like crazy things, like crazy buckle finishes. Like I want to have like a blue or no, you know what I really want? I want to get somebody. Maybe I can talk people into like Celtic green.
Yeah,
Celtic green PVD. Like maybe I can just like I know people at the Celtics. I'll have to call them and be like, hey, so this is a great investment for the players. I'll make them the belts. Just buy 1,000 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Start a Maybe if I get a petition of X amount of people on it, we can launch a buckle in that color.
Yeah, and the proprietary Celtic green. Uh, I love it. So, about you, have you ever dabbled in this world? Have you ever? I know your brother's a maker. Like he makes stuff. What
Yeah,
about
he
you?
make stuff. Yes, I mean I've made if I'm wearing a belt, it's my belt. So I make my own belts.
Oh, okay. The plot
Yeah,
thickens.
little testing on the product. I mean, I test obviously all the tools, but I make some wallets, some key fobs. I've made my wife on the occasion, purses and clutches. I cannot say that my quality stacks up to anybody that probably buys from me. So yeah, I dabble in that. I make my own fishing rods, I guess, which is when we were talking about the toolboxes. I use one of those for fish making supplies. So that tends to be more of my hobby craft. I sell hardware all day and leathers all day. I dabble in it, but I also make, certain tools and products in it. But no, fishing rods is more the craft of mine.
Okay, so how do we? Now I'm really curious. What? How does the hardware factory come into the fishing rod? What are we making with the?
Carrying
Oh,
cases.
okay,
So flyware
okay,
carrying cases and sleeves, canvas sleeves with, leather accents.
okay. Look
So
at
yeah,
you. I knew there
it's
was another layer. I'm just peeling back the onion. I knew there was more there.
no, my brother took over my dad always wanted to, he's like, man, my side hobby, I want to make bags and leather goods. I mean, we see it all day, but there's a steep, introduction to doing good leather work. We see it all. People post it all the time. Getting to just that first initial layer of leather crafting, your first wallet, I'll be honest, does not come out pretty. Your third one
No.
does not come out pretty. There is a steep learning curve to leather crafting. My
Oh yeah.
brother's been doing it now, gosh, 10 years. And yeah, he does full scale production but he's the one that gets his hands dirty when things need to be fixed and made, and just hand cutting. I mean, we sell acrylic tools now to help with some of the hand cutting, but hand cutting, freeform hand cutting is an absolute skill. And that does
Oh
not
yeah.
come
I'm
easy.
terrible at it. That's
Yeah.
why I had to start
Same.
going with dyes. I started like 2 years ago. I started using Milwaukee steel rule dyes um, because I just there was always something I was going to miss. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
I knew that like I couldn't. It's just like every aspect of it. It's like mathematical too. And I know Christian's holding up one of the
Yes.
acrylic dyes. I know.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. I saw Eric posted a video of like all these things, and it's funny how his mind works. I always love like he can take like something and he'll see like 13 different things of
Oh,
like how he'll use like the acrylic templates that I would never think to use, and he just like goes, "Oh, okay. Well, what about this?" And clearly,
oh,
that's what
yeah.
makes him as good as he is. He like his mind works like that.
Oh,
Um,
complete. I mean, there'll be, we'll have, again, like you, Matt, I can talk to Eric for days about this stuff. And, if I could pull out 10% of that and turn it into product with Eric, I mean, that's a phenomenal rate for me to bring it out. But I completely agreed. I mean, the amount of stuff that we come up with, these ideas with Eric is infinite. So agreed.
yeah, and eventually we'll probably have to ask him to jump on. He's such a good guy. For anybody that knows Eric, they know he's a genuinely nice guy. And he's also a local Massachusetts guy. Look at all this leather in Massachusetts. It's funny though. I would have never known. There's like no like there's one Tandy in all of Massachusetts, and then outside of that, I don't think you could buy leather in the entire state.
There's some
There's
smaller wholesalers. I know there's one in the Cape that does it. And there's, I think, a few others, but they're not small, so to speak, but they have their client list and their markets that they serve. And it tends to be more of a specialty style leather. Like Booth, we sell the Sedgwick now. Ken Chapman, he was the first guy in leather that we worked with, and he was local, but he sold directly to the equestrian trade. So he was selling equestrian style leather, rain leather, which Sedgwick that we now stock specializes in. So he sold a bunch of that specialty leathers, which I think there are a couple other dealers in the area. Not necessarily small leather, good craft leather. But anyways, there's some. I mean, Massachusetts is one of the originals. I mean, you look at all the old mill towns, what we
I love
specialized
it.
in back in the day. Yeah.
Especially for anybody that doesn't know listening is clearly I have a sister podcast all on sneakers, and like you said earlier, Massachusetts was one of the original shoe manufacturers in the United States. It was and still is the worldwide headquarters of New Balance, and I believe Converse had a large presence here for
Hmm.
a long, long time. Reebok, Rockport. There's like 5 or 6 companies that were like founded in Massachusetts that are like global powerhouses in shoes.
Yeah, and Converse, they
Um,
just put the Joy Wharf in Boston. They just put their headquarters back here 2 years,
yeah,
3 years ago. Yeah,
I think because they got bought out by Nike.
Nike.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe like 8 years ago at this point. Years kind of like evade me at this point. Um, and it's interesting how people kind of forget how big Massachusetts was as a player in leather. And I'm
yeah,
sure your family probably played a large part in that because of how huge it was, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, before things started moving over to Asia.
yeah.
Most things were produced in Massachusetts. They were made here. And they still have a lot of production in Massachusetts. I know New Balance has several places, which is really cool. Um, but there's a lot of equipment that goes into shoe manufacturing, as your family probably knows better than anybody. Those are serious pieces of equipment.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were just at the Linnea Pelly show, the Milan kind of supplies fashion show where you see a ton of tanneries and the shoe components, shoe soles, which one of the big ones, Vibram, actually, I believe is in
They're
Worcester.
Massachusetts.
Yeah,
They're out in like near Springfield, I think.
I think so. Yeah, they're out Western Mass. But yeah, I mean, the amount of shoe sole brands and there's certain components that we stock, like a lot of our transfer and reinforcement tapes. A lot of that you go through the brochures of some of these manufacturers, and it's a lot of it's geared toward shoes.
Yeah, you have the supports, you have the counters, you have and a lot of shoes too. Back in the day, they used to have solid leather, inside the sole, like above the sole of the shoe as kind of a support. Whereas even like, work boots, all those things used to have, veg tan like inside the shoe.
Oh, the
And they
stiff!
don't,
It's like you get up to 14 ounces, and it's the most rigid, firm leather you can find. At
and
the
it
at
like
the
just
show,
molds.
at the tannery, there's still tanneries that specialize purely in sole leather, in shoe sole leather.
Really. I feel like that must be a fascinating like show. Well, it comes to the US once a year, I think. Doesn't it come to New York?
Yeah, we used to do it's. I mean, it is a microcosm of what the one in Italy is. I mean, to do the show in Italy, you can walk miles and miles and miles and not see a quarter of it. The New York show is very small. There's maybe 60 vendors. We used to do the show, and we stopped. We only do the Italy one now twice a year.
That's fascinating. Do you guys need anybody to sit in your luggage or just hold your brochures? Because I will totally sit on that flight. Um, that must be amazing. Yeah, I've never. I've always thought about going to New York one, but if it's not that big, that's not exactly as
It's good.
exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you get a bunch of tanneries that will show up. There's a few other players, but it's mostly leather guys, and a lot of them will come to kind of say hello to their New York clients. New York and
Yeah.
LA are being the two biggest fashion capitals in the U.S., so it's a good
Now,
spot for a lot of them.
would you say it's good for the small craft, like the people who would be your customers? Is that still a place that has value? Because those people, they're only buying, a few hides at a time, or they're not buying 1,000. Typically, the everyday person, they're not buying 1,000. Is there still, would you say, a lot of value to those, or is it more geared towards the larger clients? The guys who put in the 10,000, 100,000 order units.
Are you seeing the trade shows, seeing
Yeah,
clients?
like those types of things. Are they geared towards like your average person, or is it?
We get, I mean, so when we were in Linnea Pelly last week, we got a lot of people coming to the booth that were small Buckleguy customers. Hey, we've heard of you. We're in Europe here. And, one of the biggest issues is shipping, obviously, and the VAT
Yeah.
that you ship into. But no, you get some U.S. companies, you get some companies from, Africa, quite a few. Ethiopia, actually, which I learned. We have a bunch of customers from Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the number one country in Africa for export of leathers, which I thought was interesting. Fun fact I learned while I was there.
Wow,
But
that's a plot twist. You could
yeah,
have given me 100 guesses, and Ethiopia would not have been one of them.
no, and it makes sense because when we ship to Africa, I would say 95% of the orders that we ship into Africa are into Ethiopia to manufacturers
Interesting.
there. Yeah, but no, you meet a bunch of bigger clients. Now, again, one of the things for our custom hardware, the 1,000-piece customers, is we tend to work with brands, and we tend to work with in scale of things, medium to large scale, high end brands, but brands that care about what goes into their product. So, for example, a lot of your mass market companies that are making, millions of handbags a year, they tend to go to factories in Asia and they'll say, I want this product, this spec, and I need you to be at $17.52. Well, I'm not going to be in that product. We tend to work with on the larger brand side, companies that care about the quality of the product, such as the brass hardware and the spec and the testing that we do. And so if we find those brands that have a connection to the supplies and the materials that go into the product, that tends to be who we work with. And so, yes, at these shows, we do meet them. We meet small clients and we also meet the big clients.
I like it. No, that's cool. I've always wondered about those things. I think a lot of people do too, and I think probably a lot of people that listen are probably feel the same way. Is they don't know how they are in like this gray area. They don't know like, and the great thing is you guys kind of cater to that gray area, which is nice, because not a lot. Otherwise, it's hard. There's very few companies. I think maybe Weaver and like maybe two others that even like sell in small enough quantities that you can actually even like get stuff, which is, it's really hard to like get things at a smaller quantity.
Yeah. And, our biggest client today is, started off buying, a couple hundred pieces here and there. So, we've always, my dad's ingrained it into me when I started. It's like, no, we take care of the small guys because they at some point will be the big guys. And so, we treat everybody. And that's why we have Buckleguy, because we want to take care of the small guy. That's the idea behind Buckleguy, giving people the quality hardware that they couldn't get otherwise unless they ordered 1,000 units.
Well, I'll make you feel better about yourself. So there was somebody who in one of my groups, he's become a friend of mine, and he bought one of the clicker presses. And
yes.
for the life of me, he couldn't remember it, like how to figure out how to open it. And it was just like he just had a moment. And he thought the coolest thing was the fact that you actually called him, showed him how he was just like showed him where to fix it, and like talked to them for 15 minutes and then went right back on with your day. Like at a lot of places, you don't get that. Like you actually understand the products well enough that like you can troubleshoot customer service and actually call. And that actually meant something. And I can say that for a lot of the companies that have sponsored and been a part of this is you can easily call Dave at Leather Machine Co. and he'll pick up the phone and just answer and just help you.
Yeah.
And that's not common at a lot of places. Like you can't call up everywhere and just like, they'll just help you.
Yeah. it's a small industry, the market itself is small, again, on the high end, the high volume side, there's only so many big brands. There's only so many people in those companies. It's a small world. And so, the connections, the relationships, and the reputation that you have in this world is incredibly important. You burn a bridge and, most people may hear about it. So, we try to treat our customers the same. Now, I would love to pick up the phone more. When I started here and I started the customer service part of the business 10 years ago, it was, that's all I did all day. And it was fun. You're going from a couple of emails a day to, now dealing with a lot more than that. The same with calls. I pick up the phone. I could talk to somebody for 20 minutes, but then I won't get anything done. But I enjoy connecting with the customers and making that connection with them. So it's a fun part of the job. Getting on the road and seeing people and seeing their shops and meeting them and seeing what they do is, for me, the best part of the job. And then shortly after that is, some product development. That's a lot of fun too. But seeing and meeting people is what I enjoy.
Yeah, no, I like you can tell too, like the excitement level. It's unique. You have like this excitement to it, and it's probably we were joking before we started recording. I was like, well, I get it. It's like I probably have like this like nervous energy where it's like I just get excited about anything. Like you could talk about like rotisserie chickens, and I feel like I find some level of excitement with it for absolutely no apparent reason. But like I'm like, all right, let's keep talking. Let's go. Like I like this.
Yeah, curious.
It's it's interesting. You never know what you're going to learn. But I think that these are the really important things, and those little things go a long way, like you said. I appreciate you hopping on, and for everybody that listens, be sure to check out their stuff. I'll let you know which actually on the page I have all the products that I personally use. Clearly they sell more, but it's basically stuff that like And also, we get no money for it, so don't feel like you're like we're trying to be sneaky about it. I always love to throw that in because it's nice when you actually like have like the like moral high ground for once, which I very rarely do. I'm just like, all right, like cool, like we're actually just doing it to be a good Samaritan. Yeah, check it out. And Hugh, any final words? Anything people to check out? Where can they find everything?
Yeah, on the site. I mean, I just hope I wasn't plugging my stuff too much.
I mean, if
uh,
anything, I feel like I didn't help either, so it's really not much of.
no, yeah, I'm only kidding. No, I mean, we put it all on the site. I mean, if you want to talk custom hardware and development, anybody here in the shop can
That
can
rose
talk about
gold
it.
and copper. Want to be one of those
Yeah,
people that
yeah. If you want to
rose
sign the
gold.
petition we've got going here, you can call up and it will go on the invisible sheet. So,
Yeah. I'm 100% going to put like a little like page on the website of people to get the Celtic green belt buckles one day.
I'll know
Maybe one day
I'll know where it started. So,
yeah. Or it'll probably have like two supporters. It'll be like $8 it'll raise. Um, but hey, everybody, listen, we appreciate you jumping on. Hugh, thanks for joining us.
thank
And
you, man.
for everybody that's listening, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. And we'll catch you next month. Have a good one.